have Luis from the Cooperative AI Foundation. We have Jan from the Alignment of Complex Systems and Charles University. We have Kevin from art, I guess, yeah, and Cambridge and maybe some other places. And we have Vojta from the Czech Technical University. So I have a few questions about, I think it's you can ask them anything, but I think it's interesting to ask kind of like, questions more about like what is, say, something like more high-level questions. Something like what, if you have your particle case, you can also ask it if you think it would be interesting to others, but I feel like the particle case would be more interesting to us later. Feel free to kind of mix it with the sort of like what are actually curious about, like how the area works, like how different areas actually work. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems we got a bunch of interesting questions, so maybe you can
Sure.
start answering them.
So let me start with the first one. Should one pursue the PhD after their master's to do research in general?
Yeah, the microphone has been thrust upon me. Okay, so just to clarify the question is, you do a master's and you're like, I want to do research, and the question is, should you do a PhD?
That's how I understand it, yeah.
Okay, cool. I am personally more bullish on PhDs than other people in the kind of AI safety space. I think it's by no means necessary to do a PhD to do good research, but I think that a PhD can provide a good platform to do good research. And that is the way I view a PhD, as a platform. It is a kind of, hopefully somewhere where you're getting some minimal degree of support and funding in exchange for quite a large amount of freedom. That means you don't have to work on exactly what your supervisor is doing. It means you can go off and do internships. It means you can go off and pause your PhD and work for a research foundation. It means you can go and do side projects. It means you can say, hey, I'm a PhD student. I want to cold email some professor or some industry researcher that I think is doing important, exciting work. Like, hello, I'm free labor, and like I would like to work on these important topics. Like, please, help me. Yeah, let's work together or something like this. So, and if it doesn't work out, you can always drop out. I hope my supervisors are watching this. I've not dropped out yet. I'm not intending to. But it's a thing that you can do, and a thing that I sometimes endorse people doing. So I think overall it can be a good thing to do. It's not the only place to do good research, and if you can, just skip straight to kind of, a great position in industry or position as a kind of researcher in other research organization, then I think actually that can be very good, and there's a bunch of stuff that you can get roped into when doing a PhD that doesn't end up being very useful, and so if you're going to have to compromise too hard, then maybe you should avoid that. Yeah, that's it. I think Gavin's looking at me. Gavin, I think, also dropped out of a PhD, right? Oh, you didn't drop out of a PhD? Oh, you finished the PhD? Wow, okay, you did better than I. But I'm sure you'll have other perspectives on this.
So first remark is that in this panel of 5 people, there are 4 and a half PhDs. So that tells you something. That tells you something by revealed preference. At the same time, I think that most people should not do a PhD. Most people who apply to grad school should not do a PhD. Most people who enter grad school should not finish their PhD. And most people who halfway through PhD, it's like 50-50.
Yep, all of what has been said. Also, you might believe that the world will be extremely different in like 5 years if you're doing PhD just for the title. Don't. Also, it might depend on the PhD and on the advisor. You might want to do your research. Many people end up just being super miserable. It's nearly as prone to depression as being an independent researcher. That's the only thing that's slightly worse. But it's great fun, yeah.
I think the answer depends a lot on what are your counterfactuals. Like, if you can land a job at, I don't know, Chris Olaf's team, if you are interested in, I don't know, mechanistic interpretability, and there are options are, I don't know, like doing a PhD at Cambridge, or like landing a job in Chris Olaf's team at Anthropic, I would strongly recommend like working with Chris at Anthropic. If your options are doing a PhD in Cambridge or being an independent researcher applying to like long-term future fund like every half a year or something like that, and like living in a group house in Berkeley, I'm like, I don't know. Depends on who are your housemates probably. But, yeah, I think like it's often like the question, what are the options? I think like PhD is like doing a PhD with in a good research group like has the advantage like that plausibly you can have an advisor who like teaches you some sort of like sensible research skills and research taste, and the AI safety community is kind of like horribly skewed that like the number of senior people is like extremely small, and the chance that like kind of like someone like somewhat like even a bit like seniorish in AI safety like who works in a lab will have a lot of time like to like teach you like how to do research or something is like probably very small. Also, I think like part of the research skills which like academia can teach are like fairly transferable. On the other hand, there are like many horrible places in academia where like you would end up like as free labor on like uninteresting topics, but this is often very like I don't know, like if taking a PhD, like talk mostly to other PhDs or past PhDs of the same advisor. A lot of standard advice applies, like doing a PhD with someone who is like really, really famous and has like half an hour for you like every 2 weeks. Could be great if the same person has like extremely competent postdocs, or it could be like really not worth it if it means like you are on your own, just have some sort of like weight crack on your like, CV, I don't know.
A few thoughts. Christola is not a college dropout of undergrad because he didn't bother going in the first place. That's one thing. I have a ridiculously long write-up of my PhD at gleach.org/PhD. It's like 8,000 words, so don't read all of it, but it has things like stats, how many hours I actually spent on it, which was like 3,000 across 4 years.
Yeah. Thanks. Let's go to the next question. I like this one. So, shall I go to the one which was taught previously? Lots of opportunities for getting into AI safety require considerable flexibility with time. If someone is tied to a full-time work, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, there's one part-time sort of mentoring program called SPAR, supervised something. Otherwise, if you're good enough to do research, just try and jump in and try and contribute and try and help out people who are doing it full-time, maybe.
Can you, again, what's the question? Like how to like square?
How to, if someone already has like a full-time job, it's much harder to get into alignment because I'm assuming that what they mean is a lot of alignment happens on various like summer schools and internships and conference workshops and fellowships and so on. So it's much easier if you're like very flexible with your time over 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true. It's much harder to have.
So what to do?
I mean, like switch, like find a flexible job, like find a job where like it's enough if you work like 5 hours a week, and like spend the remaining time on like AI safety. I think like I don't know, like, this is like super annoying advice, but I think it's unfortunately actually pretty sensible advice. Or like you can apply to, but there's a bunch of like fellowships and programs and grants which supposedly help people like transition into AI safety. So there are programs where like you apply and like you get the funding to like kind of like work for running your own safety. I think like OpenFlow has something like that. I don't know, like a bunch of like other funders. Like I will not give you the list, but we can post it. And So like transition in this way, if you want the security of a normal job, yeah, find a job which is like flexible, or yeah, I don't know, like spend like a year like making money in like quantitative trading, and then you 2 years like whatever you want, yeah, I don't know. Roughly that.
You already said it.
I'll also add that I basically would echo that most of that advice. A couple of other things, that programs that are set up for people to do with jobs. There's one called the Future Impact Group, which is called the FIG Fellowship, which is also works on this kind of idea that you will not have like full time to do this thing, and yet it still may be worth working on like a project over a few months with a mentor or whatever. So I've supervised some projects on that. There are also things like short sprint kind of hackathon type projects, which can be quite fun to get involved with. So some people who run those at Apart Research, there are others out there as well. I'm sure you maybe already know of those, but that's like, and sometimes often those little projects that you do end up getting turned into kind of like papers or little kind of mini contributions, and this is both a good way to build skills and also a good way to kind of signal your experience, credibility, and level of interest in doing this when it comes to applying for more things later on.
Thanks. So the next question is, does it make sense to pursue area safety research given how few opportunities compared to the number of people interested in it? And I would add, yeah, and if it makes sense, then what should people do if it feels like there's just so many fewer opportunities than people interested?
I imagine there's still more interest in funding good projects than there are good projects. So the low number of opportunities is because there's not enough people to lead and supervise people. If you have good enough ideas and ideas for how to work on them, then you can just work on them.
So I pretty strongly disagree with this. I think currently there is like way less funding and good ideas, and some of the sensible funders agree. I mean, I think the kind of like getting paid to do AI safety is like fairly competitive. Does it make sense to try? I think it makes sense to try. I think even if, I don't know, like you don't land in like AI safety job, I think like it's like an important problem, so like it makes sense like for like people like to try and then like hope the way like kind of the filtering in the ecosystem works, like kind of like lands some good people like at some spots, but yeah, and there is something like how much you are like willing to like also your like risk tolerance. So like if you are like very like risk averse, then I think the safest option is probably try to like pursue this field in like academia. Like if you want like relatively safe bet that you can do and work on AI safety, is like try to like steer toward like AI safety career in academia. There are like few people like working on AI safety in academia. Even the academic part of the field is kind of growing, the academic interest is growing, the academic funding is growing, and it's like way less competitive than the like kind of para-academic set of funders like wanting to fund like excellent like AI safety research. I think like one caveat or like one thing which I think is like good to be honest about, I think the AI safety funding ecosystem actually funds more people, like way more people attempts to try to get into AI safety. It's like very easier to get some funding to transition into AI safety than to like kind of get employed or like have some like stable income. So in this direction, like in this way, the system is like somewhat like ruthless. That and like hundreds of people are like applying to program like meds. Meds churn out like like 100 people per year. Ideally, humanity should be like employing like almost all these people. Like our civilization like fails at that, so like everything is like fairly competitive.
I have a follow-up to the question from me. Do you actually expect the field to grow? Because like one thing that could be happening is like, so the field was growing, then now it's like the demand or the the supply of people wanting to work on it is growing faster than the field, but maybe it's just a temporary thing and will be growing faster. Is that possible, or is it less likely?
So I know OpenFill are planning to increase their spending. That's like a dominant term. I expect lots of people to start getting really worried. I think some of those will be rich people, which will also eventually increase it.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look on like academic research funding, it's like many orders of magnitude like larger than AI safety, and the program is like increasing the silence. So like, also I think like the field will continue to grow. Like it will continue to grow like fairly fast. It's unclear if the speed is still like matching the speed of the like AI progress and stuff like that, but. I think the field definitely like grows like fast. Also, as states will become more involved, I think like already like the UK AI Security Institute is probably one of the biggest employers in the field. As US will catch up, hopefully they will also like need people. Like EU AI office is also decent, like has a lot of like good people and like decent teams, and like individual nation states will need to like grow their competence. Like I think like the number of opportunities like will grow.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that, but I basically agree with those points. I do think it's skewed, unfortunately, at the moment in the ways that there's this kind of, we can get so far, and then there's this kind of like cliff edge where like either in your like the top percentiles of kind of like talent and or luck and or like fall into other sorts of things and you can find a great role, or you kind of just end up a little bit kind of like, oh, what do I do now then? And then, yeah, you've got to try and answer that question. I think another thing, and I can say this for myself at least, is that like, I think it's fine not to be I think people who care about AI safety often end up being kind of like academically inclined, or they think that like research is the important thing, or this is what all the clever people on some stage are talking about doing research and that sort of thing. I think research is very important, that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. But I also think there's lots of great work to be done outside of research. My work at the Cooperative AI Foundation, I don't do research at the Cooperative AI Foundation. I do a bunch of other things like running summer schools, or running workshops, or kind of like funding work, or like writing up things for like policymakers, or like providing input on these things. All stuff that requires some level of kind of technical skill and understanding of the field, which you are all either have or are gathering anyway, but that are not like, I'm coming up with the next like alignment breakthrough or something like that. And I do want many people to be trying to do that thing as well, but I also want people to realize that there are loads of ways that they can put their kind of technical skills and understanding of the field to use that doesn't involve like the very standard pathways. And I think this is good to appreciate, and that's kind of why I'm doing with my career at the moment. So.
I think there is some like generalizable component of it. Just like look for like low status things, because the highest competition is for the high status things, and often the most like kind of the on importance and acceptability and like neglectedness, like and like making grants is not so high status. OpenFill has like a more problems finding like good grant makers, then they have trouble like finding people who are applying for the funding. So like I don't know, like from some perspective there is actually a lot of opportunities in the space if you are like ready to look for the things which are not necessarily the most like shiny.
Some of the other things that I think are really nice would be a lot of the people doing AI journaling. There will be more demand for that. Rob Miles' YouTube videos are great. Some of the work that AI impacts are doing. It's not maybe all of it like original technical worthy research, but it's great.
I'm going to encourage you to submit more questions and vote for them, so we have like stronger signal of what you're really interested in. And I'm going to follow up with the question about what hybrid policies and AI roles are emerging outside of academia. Like what skill sets are critical for bridging technical teams and policymakers, or what other thoughts you have about like opportunities in the direction of how can people like bridge technical AI work and policymaking or talking to policymakers.
Yeah, so demos, in-person, small group, 4 people, demos where you just like force them to pay attention to what they can and can't do. For several years, this has been one of the most cost-effective things in the world to do, beating many kinds of research. There's a group called Civic AI, which started more than 2 years ago, and they were the only people speaking to US state governments, like the only people. There was 2 guys. They didn't need any money except like flights, I guess. Don't know if this is still true, but yeah, do not overestimate what politicians already know.
I have some thoughts on this, I guess, a little bit, so I'll echo those things. I think like demos and like translating things for people and coming up with like polished, kind of like shiny, like explainers and videos and these sorts of things that can be shipped to people are like great. There's a group doing this called the AI Digest as well, who do a really nice job of some certain things. Again, like a bunch of technical people working there, a bunch of people who understand the threat models of AI safety and so on, but they're not spending their days kind of coming up with like new research ideas. They're coming up with like ways to explain this to people in positions who have like strong, decision-making power, etc. I think another thing that's kind of interesting that I've been gravitating a little bit more towards recently is as we start to see advanced AI agents emerge and kind of, that we have them, they're going to be starting to touch the world in different places, like sooner and in some places rather than others, and trying to like understand what's going to happen in like a kind of like narrower domain that could still be kind of quite impactful overall is I think something that's worth doing. So I'm supervising a project at the moment, working with someone who's thinking about the kind of impact of very, very advanced AI systems on the kind of stability and volatility of financial markets. And you might think like, oh, financial markets, like, people will have lots of incentives to kind of make money on those and to not, for those to get too screwed up. But then in fact, we see a bunch of like crashes and we see a bunch of like these, the global stabilization of the international markets and so on has huge, vast knock-on effects to like everything else that how it works in the world. And if we're trying to create a kind of reasonably kind of stable regime where we try and like develop the most consequential technologies that the world has ever had, maybe we don't want everything to be like crazily volatile and all of these sorts of things. I think another instance is like people have been looking at the usage of AI in the military and like strategic decision making in those sorts of places. Other people have been thinking about kind of how AI can improve kind of governments basically and the ways that kind of like countries run and kind of democracies and so on. And I think certain kinds of like narrow application domains often aren't like as flashy or exciting or as high status, or it's like it's only one piece of the puzzle and it's not like that sort of thing. But I think these can be sometimes good ways to work on stuff. That's great.
Because the topics I talked about yesterday in the talk about actual disempowerment. So I think like for like actually taking seriously like AI and like economy, I think there are like roughly like 5 good economists like thinking about AI and economy seriously. I think there is like also something like 5 to 10 people thinking about like interactions of AI and cultural evolution seriously, maybe less. Some of the best people in this field are a bit on the weird edge of the but depending on like I think like there's something like maybe like 2 people in academia thinking seriously about like interaction of cultural evolution and AI. There are like probably like something like 20 people like thinking seriously about interactions of AI and like how states work. There's probably hundreds, like few hundred people like working on governance, but that's like a different perspective. Um, like there are like so many things which are like extremely neglected, and I don't know, like becoming the person number 6 who like actually is a competent economist and understands AI is I don't know, I don't think it's like that hard or something.
Just on that front, one thing I forgot to say is I just want to make a pitch for like the area of technical AI governance as well, which I'm very bullish on, which is basically like, there's a bunch of technical problems which if solved would make governing AI much easier. And a lot of them are not like especially hard or like complicated, but I mean some of them are. And they're definitely not as like kind of high status or fun or whatever. It's like on chip kind of like monitoring controls and kind of, you know, like attribution of data and tracking models and all these sorts of things. And anyway, I think a bunch of that stuff is going to just be like extremely useful, and not enough people are working on it. And it's something you can do with technical skills that really helps with kind of governance efforts and kind of broader kind of approaches.
There might also be some people who have more or complementary knowledge about this than us in this room. I don't know. Okay, Shannon is not here, but Shannon would know something about this. Maybe Maria over there, and there might be other people here that you could talk about this. If you can wave your hand, and other people can talk to you about it. Yeah. So. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. On that, I was gonna say it at the end, but we have some of the participants here actually are working on like adjacent to funders or people hiring people or just have a lot of experience with it, like just those people waving, maybe possibly a few more people. I would encourage those people to, you know, if you want, just flag it in either I guess opportunity might be a place for that you would be like open to talking about like some, even if it's just one particular area or one particular domain of expertise or your experience. I think that might be valuable for others as a kind of a signal, like here's the person to talk to. Yeah, so thanks for bringing that with us. I'm gonna follow with like a direct question before we sort of like switch areas, and that's what's your opinion on going all in on public awareness campaigns like HAAISS AI, Stop AI, and possibly others, whether like taking part or inventing new ones, or yeah, how do you feel about that? What do you think?
Yeah, so no to some of them. Stop AI did a thing where they sat down in traffic on a highway in San Francisco. Please don't do that. The book title, If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, alone, I don't know if the book is any good, but that's a great title.
And any other thoughts? Like, I think the other question wasn't in the article about like those two initiatives, but like, how much, if you want to help AI alignment, whatever that means, is it meaningful to consider activities like this, like public awareness campaigns?
I mean, and I think like one perspective is something like, it seems very likely that, so like, there will be some, it's pretty likely there will be some sort of public backlash against AI. Public in many countries is like already like kind of like feels like pretty like negatively about AI. I think like people are like distanced, that like for most people the risks and the possibility of kind of upending their lives and so on, it's not that we are like kind of moving toward AI based on like some sort of like democratic consensus that everyone wants to build HAI, but more based on some sort of blind market dynamics and stuff like that. So I think like it's fair for the public to organize. I think I don't know, I think like it seems like over-determined that you will have like anti-AI movements, So I think it would be, it's probably, and no, like I think like in some ways like post AI is like trying to do a relatively sane version of the anti-AI movement. We will probably get like more like radical things. I don't know. I think it's like tricky. I think it's like it's a tricky domain to orient like kind of like how to do advocacy and don't becoming like kind of single-minded thing. I personally don't feel like compelled to do that, but I think it's like plausibly like high impact. It can have high impact. There is probably a lot of variance, like how the like kind of movements like advocating for like public control of AI, how they can go. So like trying to push it toward good outcomes is probably good. I think there's also a lot of potential for like bad outcomes. And I think like overall the AI safety community, like the classical AI safety community, like took like relatively large bet on kind of keeping like very good relations with the labs. There is a reasonable argument that this was a mistake or this is a mistake. There is a nice post by I think like Scott, as many good posts are, like kind of like him explaining that it's a bit weird situation where like you can imagine like if the environmental movement was like structured like this, you would be kind of like everyone would be part of some sort of like fossil fuels community, and the people would be like kind of transitioning between like environmental organizations and the mining companies, and like you know they would all feel part of the same like fossil fuels community, like trying to do something, and that's a weird like conflict of interest. Yeah, I don't know.
On the point with inevitable and anti-AI sentiment, I have somewhat shorter timelines than Jan, so I think there's a good chance that we could get crazy superintelligence before any of that happens. But at the same time, I'm not confident about this enough to be like, oh, sure, we can take like a unilateral actions that will increase our chances a tiny bit in the world where we do get superintelligence in 2 years, and that they will like totally discredit the whole movement if that doesn't happen. So don't take like crazy actions, unilateral ones, based on things that you're not confident about, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So also don't take crazy sort of fictional actions based on things you are confident about.
Yeah.
Thanks. So let's switch up the area a bit. So the top question now is how to deal with burnout or existential panic. And I know this is a very general question, so I think rather than some general guide, I mean if you have general thoughts then sure, but like I think I would be in part interested like if you have any like personal takes or recipes or experience that you feel like is relevant.
I don't know. I think we're all gonna die in 3 years, but might have some fun in the meantime. The job is fun, and also maybe not. So I don't know. No, okay, I'll exaggerate a bit, but yeah, like I don't know. Don't worry about things that don't like make an actual difference. If you're not gonna do anything differently, like I don't know, enjoy yourself.
So I met this extremely cheerful guy in Berkeley, and I said, hey, I know your views, and they're very bad, so how come you're so cheerful? And he said, it's going to be so interesting. So adopt that mindset, I guess.
I don't know, few pointers. So there is, it's more like kind of like how to avoid burnout, or there is a nice post by Anna Salomon where I don't remember the name of the post. It's on Lesson, but it's about like kind of like how much to like sacrifice other things relative to working on AI safety. And the main idea is like you can sometimes kind of do things in haste, and like you can sacrifice some like resources like to like kind of produce more. And for example, like you can get like more out of a day if you don't sleep like suddenly you have like 24 hours you can work, and it's not very like sustainable like over if you stop sleeping like your like actual like work outputs will like rapidly deteriorate like in a few days. So there may be cases where like it may make sense to like sacrifice some sleep, but we are not in such a hurry. And like similar things like apply for like longer time horizons, where what's common phenomenon in people like moving into AI safety, or it was common phenomenon, was people, for example, like kind of like sacrificing like learning, being like there are so pressing problems, maybe I shouldn't like waste my time like I don't know, like learning like random like math, like or like random evolutionary biology, or like random things like you are like interested in, and instead of that, it's maybe better to go to Berkeley and code evals or something. And I think the like you know this like approach of like do things in haste and like sacrifice things which like improve your like long-term abilities, or like stop having hobbies, or stop talking with friends, have only friends who are also like interested in AI safety and so on. Like overall, like this has like pretty bad track record. Like don't do that. Like it seems like it doesn't work, and like I don't know. I think like even the people with like relatively short timelines would typically agree that there is like enough uncertainty that it's kind of like if you like stop learning or like stop sleeping, it probably like won't help, I think.
Also, apart from the point where you might be less effective, other people who might consider joining the field will see that people who work here are miserable and they will not want to join. So even if you don't care about yourself, just do it for the field. Have fun. Enjoy yourself.
Tonight, 6 p.m.